He walks up to my door, rips the keys out the ignition. 2 armed police get out, hand on the pistols, and they're like looking around the car. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you will have to show up in a court of law, and then starts to like read out my rights and stuff. Hello, good morning everybody. Good morning everybody. I've been asked to do this video for a very long time now. I wasn't going to do it because it's something that I potentially don't really want to give a bad vibe across, or looks like I'm bitching, or I don't really want to bring up any demons that may be now pushed away or whatever. But the reason I am doing it, the main reason I'm doing it, is because I feel like there are some really big issues in this, and I feel like this could easily happen to anyone. And I feel like at the minute, obviously with George doing what he does with the police and stuff, that it seems like they want to inform people of right and wrong at the minute, especially with the car scene. Now, I believe I got an incredibly unlucky situation where I actually believed I was doing nothing wrong, and felt like I got thrown the book at, and it could have been potential really bad ending. So I'm going to say what happened and hopefully educate some of you guys to not do this. And I'm 100% sure a lot of you guys have done this without thinking anything was wrong with it. So I'm going to say what happened. So about a year ago, I put on Instagram that I got pulled by the police, and it was quite serious. I was sent to court, and I had my court date around about a month ago. So I'm just going to say the story, and I'm going to give key points of what you shouldn't do in the future, and points which need to be, I think, which need to be addressed by the legal system, because it's too much of a grey area, and it's dangerous for people, especially people like us who like to buy and sell cars. So again, I am not doing this to bitch at the police. I have a lot of respect for the police. I still do. I just think that this needs to be communicated with a lot more people. So I was up north, and it was Bank Holiday Sunday, and I was up there. One of my friends said, I'm going to bring a car up. Can you give me a lift home? I said, yeah, of course. So he drove a car to Manchester, and I was coming back to Essex where I live. So I picked him up, and on the way home we saw this car for sale. It was a BMW 5 Series. It was a desirable engine. It had some mods. You know, it was a good base, and it was cheap. This woman needed it gone that night. Like, she needed it gone that night. So me and my mate discussed it, and I was like, well, I don't really want it. Came to this deal, like, I'll buy it, do some content, and then I'll sell it on to him. So we drove down, and it was like, I live over here in Essex. It was like the opposite side of, like, it was like South London way. So we went around the M25 that way. And we looked at the car, and we said, is it insured, is it taxed, is it MOT'd? Yeah, it's insured, yeah, it's taxed, it's MOT'd, it's fine, there's no issues with it other than what was on the advert. The advert said the bodywork was tatty and stuff like that. Nothing bad about the car. So we got there, and it was like 12 o'clock on a bank holiday night, and it was a bit rougher than what the pictures suggested. Like, the arches had been rolled up, and it just looked a little bit rough. There was a spare wheel on the back, but the spare wheel on the back was because one of the wheels was buckled and it weren't holding air. So I was like, it's a bit rougher than I thought, but at no point did I think that the car was illegal. So at this point, so obviously I'm quite clued up with insurance, I believe. I've got, 3 different cars insured, all with Drive Any Car. I've been insuring different cars all over the past 10 years or whatever. Now, what was happening is, if you're aware, temp covers don't cover modifications. So if you look at tempcover.com, they don't insure modified cars. And since obviously my insurance company was closed, there was no way for me to get that home. It was either trailer it or drive it home my third-party insurance. Now, I know that my third-party insurance doesn't allow me to drive cars which I own. So I come to agreement with the owner. She needed it gone that night. I said, I'll take the car tonight. I'll pay a big chunk of the money, not the full asking price, and we'll agree, me and you will agree, if you put it in writing over an email, that we will finalise the sale in the morning. She said, that's perfectly fine. So I took the car and I drove off. Drove off with my mate following me. So I know that my third-party cover covers me in cars that I don't own and cars that have to be insured. So she's told me the car was insured, and we've agreed that the ownership would be transferred over in the morning. The finalisation of the sale will be transferred in the morning when my insurance company is open, blah, 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 where it's both more feasible. It was more feasible for both of us to do that rather than trying to leave it there and deal with it at 12 o'clock on a bank holiday night. So I drive the car away thinking everything's fine. There's a spare wheel in the back, the bodywork's a bit rough, but it's not illegal in any way, and I'm insured through my third party cover because I've got 3 cars insured, all with Drive Any Car insurance. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Now, this was the worst weekend of my entire life. It's not just one thing I had with the police, it's 2 things I had with the police this entire weekend, and it all ties in together. So if you're bored, just click away, but bear with me because here is a lesson for everyone. So I was driving down the M25, I was sat at 50 mile an hour, and was literally sat at 50, 55 mile an hour. I knew I had a spare wheel once, so I was driving super slow. It was dead, it was a bank holiday, absolutely dead. A traffic cop pulled up in the middle lane and just sits there for about 5 minutes, just following us like 5 minutes, and we just stick on track. After a while, he comes behind me and he pulls me up. I'm thinking it's not really an issue, I'll just pull over. You know, I don't know why he's pulling me over, but I had no worries whatsoever in the world. Absolutely no worries whatsoever in the world. So he comes up to the window and he basically says, "Is this car yours?" I said, "It's not mine. I'm driving it home. I've just agreed to buy it off someone, blah, 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 blah." Explain the situation. And he goes, "Right." And he goes, "Is it insured?" I said, "Yeah, it's insured. I've got a message here for them saying it's insured." He says to me, "It's not insured." And I've said, "Well, I've literally just picked it up. They said it was insured." Now, here is number 1 lesson to anyone driving a car ever. Not even just buying a car ever. Do not take someone's word for it. Now, do not take someone's word for it. This is the biggest argument that I went to court with because this is a serious issue. After doing some research, this is a serious issue. Now, what I found out is there is no way, absolutely no way, unless you work in insurance or for the police, that you can tell a car is insured at that minute. No way whatsoever. At the time, I didn't know there was a thing called MID check. You can go on midcheck.com. This is a lesson. If you're ever driving a car, no matter what they say, just go on MID check mid, and just check if it's insured. Now, there's an issue here as well, because when you update check MID check, it takes 4 to 5 days to update. So I could cancel my policy today. Tomorrow, it could still say the car is insured. Long story short, the police checked the reg, and the car was showing not insured. Later, I found out that the car insurance for that car expired a day before, and the lady who told me it was insured got the dates wrong. So she told me it's insured. When I got pulled, the car insurance expired a day before. So if I knew of check MID at the time, it would have probably still said the car was insured. There would have been no way to tell a car is insured unless you work for the police or insurance. Now, this is a big issue. This is a serious issue. He said to me, "You're the owner of this car." I said, I'm not the owner. I've not sent over the full amount, and I've agreed with the owner that the finalisation sale would happen tomorrow. He didn't. He wasn't bothered. "You own this car, therefore your third party doesn't apply. Therefore you're driving this car not insured." And I was like, "I've got 3 cars who drive any car insurance. I don't dodge insurance." He said, "Doesn't matter. You own this car." And however much I stressed that I did not own the car, he didn't believe me or didn't want to believe me, whatever. So he then proceeds to get in the car to drive it off the motorway. And on the way home, he points out defects in the car. So he says the handbrake's not working efficiently. He checks over the whole car. He checks the wheels. He notes down everything wrong with the car. He finds out that the indicators are working on the outside, but they're not working on the inside. They're not flashing inside the car, but the indicators are working. He notices the high beams aren't working. He notices the horn's not working properly. He notices that the handbrake isn't holding the car sufficiently enough. And he also notices that one of the wheels hasn't got 5 wheel nuts on. So he pulls me into the back of the car and he says, "We're doing you for no insurance. We're doing you for driving a car that's likely to cause injury because of these multiple defects. And we're also doing you for a cat because your front reg plate isn't mounted correctly." And I'm sat there, I'm like, "What?" I actually can't even believe it at the time. I'm like, "What?" And then he goes, "Because there's so many points here involved, we cannot do this at the roadside. You will have to show up in a court of law," and then starts to like read out my rights and stuff. I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" And then he says, you're not driving the car home. We're seizing the car and you have to come. You've got a week to turn up and otherwise the car will be destroyed. But you have to come and prove the car is insured and blah, 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 blah. And then you can get the car home. I'm like, oh my God. And he says, also, I've put a prohibition on this car so this car can never see the road unless you bring it to, you can prove to the police that all these defects have been fixed. So it's got a prohibition notice on the car and it will be on the reg and it will always be on that car. The only way you can get this off is if you bring it to a MOT certified, a police certified MOT station and they deem the car MOT. I'm like, what? And at this point, I don't even care about the car. Like, I don't even care about the car. I'm just sat there going, this is a lot of points. These are a lot of points. So it's 6 points for no insurance, 3 points for the car being likely to cause injury, and then it's just a fine for the reg. But I'm thinking this is potentially 9 points, and I actually don't even believe I've done anything wrong. He actually rang me up after, and he said, why don't you just use temp cover? And I said, because temp cover don't show modifications. If I did it on temp cover, I probably would have not got pulled over because it said it was insured, but I would have been knowingly not insuring that car because I know temp cover don't cover modifications. The only way to get that car home was to go through my insurance, and my insurance were closed, so I've therefore used my third party, which I know cover modifications, but they weren't having any of it. So at that point, I'm just like, I get home here and I'm just like, what the hell has just happened? Like, what the hell has just happened? So the story doesn't end there. I had an absolute terrible night. I didn't actually sleep for more than like half an hour. I was just like, obviously my whole livelihood, is my license, like everything I do to make money is to do with my license and my cars. So I'm absolutely shitting bricks at this point, but it's not over because I've got to go and get this car out the bloody impound. So I jump in my Merc, my white Merc at the time, and I drive to the place where the car is. So I insure the car, I insure the BMW. I've got to go into the police station. I've got to go into the police station in the morning and then get a release note from them. So I have to take all my proof, my license, everything like this, and then I have to go into the police, sit there in the morning, and because it's bank holiday, it took absolutely ages. And I have to get like a permission to release the car slip from the police station. So I go in there, get that, which wasn't easy. I talked to the officer and he couldn't believe that I was going to court. I was like, because he was all right. He was quite a nice guy, this person. And I was just asking him advice about going to court. And he was like, why are you going to court? I was like, well, because the car's been seized. He was like, well, why are you going to court? I was like, well, they've told me I'm going to court. And he was like, you're not going to court. I was like, I think I am going to court. And he was like, no, why are you going to court? And I was like, look at that. And he was actually surprised that they did me for the multiple things. He was very surprised. I could kind of tell he didn't want to give anything away, but I could tell in his face he was a bit shocked that they did me for the multiple points and not just the one offence. So I was like, great. So I got this thing and I drove around to the car impound thing. Gave him the slip, they pulled the car out, I can't drive it home, I'm not going to drive it home, it's got that prohibition on it. So I was like, great, so I put it on a trailer, and I'll get the car on the trailer, and I'm like, right, I've got the car, it's done, I can go home, and I can just try to relax now, because I was absolutely terrified and shit my pants, to be honest. So this is when it gets even worse. So I'm driving my white Merc out of now I've noticed since I've been driving around the local town going to the police station and stuff, there's been a lot of police cars like driving past me and looking at me. I didn't know and I was just like, this is weird, like, do I look suspicious? I just thought I looked suspicious because I was just so nervous about the whole situation. Anyway, it comes apparent that I didn't look suspicious. It was because, well, so I drove out the impound, I was following the car on the trailer. Obviously the BMW was on the trailer and he was taking it back to mine. I followed him, and as soon as I pulled out the impound lock, there was a traffic cop's car across the road, sat there. And I just knew in my head, I was like, what are the chances he's just sat there? It's a bit too convenient, isn't it? So I pull out and he pulls in behind me. I'm like, at this point, I'm really done with dealing with police. I didn't want to deal with anymore. I just thought maybe he's just following someone else. So I turn left, he turns left. I turn left, he turns left. I turn left again, he turns left. I'm like, he's definitely following me, so I'm just going to pull over because there's no point. Wait, he's 100% going to pull me. So I pull over, and this traffic cop comes in behind me. He walks up to my door, rips the keys out the ignition, And at this point, I swear to God, this armed police X5 literally comes up, T-packs me, literally in an inch of my bumper, and these two armed police get out, hand on the fucking pistols, and they're like looking around the car. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I've never felt like a criminal so much in my entire life. And they're like looking through the windows of my Merc, and like these armed police with the caps, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And the traffic cop pulls it, and he's like, whose car is this? I'm like, it's my car. And he's like, is it stolen? I'm like, no, it's my car. And he's like, why is it coming back as a silver BMW? I'm like, right, I've put my private plate on this weekend, and I'm guessing because it's bank holiday weekend, DVLA haven't updated it. Again, thanks a lot, DVLA. So he's obviously very skeptical about the whole situation. And I'm like, look, like I've got a load of documents here, I can literally prove it. So I get my documents out, and I show my insurance, it's insured, white Mercedes, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, what are you doing around here? And I'm like, well, funnily enough, I'm actually collecting a cab that I got pulled over for no insurance last night. And he's like, and then I'm like, this is not going to help, is it? And I'm like, I'm literally collecting a car that's been seized for no insurance just today. And I was like, but I genuinely believe I was insured on the car. And I said, I think this whole situation is a total misunderstanding. And he's a bit skeptical at first, and he's obviously reading all the documents. And at that point, he's all right then. And then at this point, he fucking radios up to the sky. Yep, it's fine. I'm like, what? They had a chopper out. They literally had a police helicopter out and armed police for me. for me. So I was like, oh my God. And I was like, was that a police? I was like, is that a police helicopter? And he was like, yeah. He was like, we don't take stolen cars very kindly around here. And I'm like, well. And he was like, well, it's fine. Obviously, it's just a DVLA with your registration. He was like, I believe that this car is yours, and I believe it's insured. I'm like, thank you. And he was like, well, it's good you pull over, because that armed police were ready to put a spike strip out at the top of the road. I was like, are you actually being serious? I'm not even joking. This is genuinely true. So at this point, the armed police, they get in the X5 and they piss off. And at this point, he's quite understanding, this guy. He's like, sorry, obviously we've had a lot of stolen cars recently, and when we see a white Mercedes like this showing a silver BMW, looks a bit suspicious, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's totally fine. And then at this point, he calms down. He's like, so what are you here for? And I was like, well, last night I picked up a car and I got pulled over, and I was like, I believed I was insured for my third party, but they were saying I own the car, even though I believed I didn't. Therefore, they've seized the car, and now I'm coming picking up the car. And he was like, have they given you a slip? I was like, yeah. And he was like, can I have a look? And he looked. And literally, I'm not going to say everything he says, because one thing was quite detrimental to the police officer that pulled me, but he looked at the sheet and he said, they've done you for 3 points. And he was like, for a car being unroadworthy. And I said, yeah. He said, have you got the slip for that? And I gave him the prohibition notice, and he looked, and he went, 3 points for a wheel nut missing. And I was like, yeah. And he said, did they not give you an opportunity to take the wheel nut off the other wheel? And I said, no. And he went, word by word. And then he looked, and he said, what else? And he said, they've done you for no insurance. I said, yeah, no insurance. And he was like, have you got insurance? I was like, yeah, I've got 3 cars insured. And he was like, he was like, was the car insured? And I said, well, I got told the car was insured, but he said that I own the car. And he was like, and he said, and literally to his words, he said, it sounds like he's been the judge and the jury on this one. That's what he said to me, this police officer. And I didn't catch his name, but thank you so much. He spoke to me for about half an hour. Literally sat out his day and spoke to me for half an hour, because his words, he said, we being arsey with them, we being off with them. I said, to be honest, mate, I was actually being nicer to them than I'm being to you, because I'm in my car and I know this is insured. So I was actually being nice. I was actually being more considerate to them. And he was like, and then he saw the name of the person who did it, and he didn't agree with. Let's say he didn't agree with what I got done with. So then he talked to me for about half an hour afterwards, and he was just saying, look, go to court, argue it, you've got a good argument. He said, just don't go in there without a solicitor, make sure you get a solicitor if you can afford one. And that was the gist of the conversation. He said, good luck, get home. He says he says there is a mark on this car that it's stolen, but he says I'll remove that, so hopefully I have no issues getting home. Really, really nice guy. So thank you to officer who pulled me over the next day. Although it was frightening as shit, thank you, because you really like helped me out there. Like, I was so nervous and gave me a little bit of hope. So to that police officer, thank you so much. Like, you're a credit to the police force. I didn't catch your name, and I wouldn't even say your name on here anyway, but thank you so much. So at this point, I drive home thinking I'm going to get pulled again, because obviously I just felt like an absolute criminal the whole weekend. I just felt it was horrific. And I got home, and then it was just a waiting game, really. I was terrified of driving any cars. I barely even took the M3 out, so I was just terrified of getting pulled. Like, honestly, it was horrific. And then a long waiting game. 6 months later, I get a letter through the post saying exactly what the police ripped me up for. 6 points for no insurance, 3 points for this, fine for that. How do you plead? So at this point, I was messaging a solicitor, and he was saying, you know, he said to me, was the car in a bad condition? I said, it wasn't the best condition. I was like, I actually had no idea, wheel nuts missing and stuff, but I suppose I should have done a better check of the car before driving it. So he was like, just plead guilty to the 3 points. If you believe that's fair. I was like, yeah, that's fair. I should have looked over the car more. I shouldn't really drove it with a spare wheel on the back. Okay, so I pled guilty to the 3 points. I pled not guilty to no insurance because I just thought it was totally unfair. So pled not guilty to no insurance. Anyway, another 6 months comes through. I get a letter through from after that I get multiple phone calls from the police officer who prosecuted me or pulled me over in the first night. Multiple phone calls. I've seen how you've pled guilt. I've seen how you've pled not guilty to no insurance. I was like, yeah, because I explained my reasons again. I've got driving in car insurance. The owner of the vehicle, we had an agreement that I didn't own the car. And you know, all these reasons of why I couldn't buy temp cover, all these reasons went to another phone. I said that's why I'm pleading not guilty. I don't think I'm guilty of this offence. And then, to be fair, I felt a little bit pressured by this police officer not going to lie, to change it to guilty. But I speak to my solicitor, and I was trying to, you know, weigh up everything. Lo and behold, I pled not guilty to no insurance, and then 6 months later I get a court date. And then, long story short, I turn up at court. On the last one of the day, I'm waiting around for like 5 hours. Last one to go in, and I go in with this massive folder. I just want to just prove my case of the no insurance and why this is an issue in society, with the fact that you cannot check if a car is insured. So obviously I go in with paperwork from all these comparison sites of that all the temp covers don't insure modifications. I go in with the fact that on the Ask MID website it says that there can be a 3 to 5 delay of updating the insurance database, and the only way you can actually ignore cars if you work at the only people who've got up-to-date ones are the police or the insurance companies, and all this. Just basically just go in and just ready to just prove, you know, just say my case of how I don't think it's fair and how this is an issue for multiple people going forward. And what happens is I walk in, and obviously they ask me to stand up and then say my name, say my address, and then they ask me to sit down. And there's like a few different solicitors. There's like a judge, a police prosecution, and like a barrister. And the barrister was really nice. She was really welcoming, really smiley, really kind of made you feel at ease, which was nice. The police prosecution just stood there and looked forward, and then the judge was just like not there to piss about. Just what we're dealing with, this is it. That's, you know, just very to the book. So as soon as I walk in, she says, can you just say your name? I said, blah, blah, my name's Lockwood, blah, 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 blah. She said, can you just confirm how long you've held license for and how long that's been clean? I said, I've held a clean license for 10 years. She said, have you ever been convicted of anything? I said, never been convicted of anything. She was like, thank you, you can take a seat. So I sit down, and then she stands up again. She goes, just to let you know, the police prosecution have decided to withdraw the no insurance. I'm just like, oh my God, like, I just say, thank you so much. And she just goes, don't thank me, thank the police prosecution. And I was like, thank you. Obviously you weren't looking at me, so I just said thank you, and then sat back down. And then basically the judge asked the police prosecution to stand up and just say the rest of the things I was being convicted for. So he got pulled over the M25. The police found out there was a wheel nut missing. There was the high beams weren't working. Blah 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 blah. And she was like, high beams aren't working. And she was a bit confused. To be fair, I got the impression that she was a bit confused why I was there. And she was like, okay. And then she looked at the barrister. She was like, has he been done for this offence before? The barrister was like, no, clean license for 10 years. And she said to me, she was like, what do you have to say for yourself? So I just stood up, said, although I'm not an MOT tester and I don't really know how to do an MOT test at the side of the road, and these issues are quite issues that you wouldn't really look at when driving a car. I said it was my responsibility when driving and I should have looked over the car more, so that's why I pled guilty to that. Obviously I said it in a bit more nicer language than that, but that's basically what I said. And he said, thank you, you can take a seat. So I sat down and he just said, yeah, we're going to give you 3 points and a £300 fine. See you later. And I was just like, and the relief when I got out, because I thought I was going to be walking out with like 9 points, like minimum. So yeah, I have no idea why they dropped the no insurance case. Like, I put my case forward online like exactly how I would have put it forward on the court, but it was, in my opinion, I don't know why they dropped it when I walked in. Part of me thinks because I was the last one in, it was like 5:30, and just wanted to get me out. Maybe I'm not quite sure, but yeah, the lesson from here is, seriously, do not drive a car when someone says it's insured. It literally takes that little to get done for something like that. Literally takes that little. Someone told me a car was insured and it wasn't, and that was the whole reason I went through all this thing. And also, when you're driving a car, look into it more. Don't just trust one thing. Don't trust someone's word. Don't trust check MID, because that could be wrong. Do a couple things, especially if you don't know the person. And my advice is, if there's issues with the car or there's potential issues with it's a bit rough, just get it trailered. It's not worth the aggro, or walk away from it. The no insurance thing is a serious issue. I think something needs to happen around that, because you can easily get caught out in that. Because, as I said, there is no way of telling a car is at that minute insured unless you work for the police or you have a insurance database like on hand if you're a broker or whatever. So that was my issue with the police. Some might say I got lucky, some might say I feel like I got unlucky at the start and then I got a little bit lucky at the end, so it kind of just went down the middle. So I was happy taking 3 points. You know, I think that's fair. Taking 3 points was fair. It was a fair outcome, and that's what happened with the police. Have I learned from it? 100%. I do not drive. I don't drive anyone's car anymore without doing a insurance check. So there's a website called Ask Mid or Check MID. You can put the reg in there and it tells you if it's insured on their database or not. Do that. That's the one thing I've learned from this situation. Just check. And also, don't rely on your third-party insurance as much, because I truly believed I was in the realms of being totally fine, and the police officer on the night decided that wasn't. So yeah, I'm not going to put any sort of evidence or anything over the screen because it's just not necessary. And again, I don't want to make this video slating the police or slating the police as a whole or the officer that pulled me that night. He was just doing his job, and unfortunately I was just in a situation where I just wish there was more education on this. But yeah, thanks for watching everyone. Love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.